So Nathan, thank you for being on Willpower. I'm so excited to be in this another collaboration. How many podcast episodes do you think we've done together between your show?
On my podcast, you're probably in the 20s.
Isn't that amazing how much time you and I have spent?
And I feel pretty proud that I was the first guest on Willpower.
You better believe it. Number one, and that episode crushed.
Did it really?
It crushed.
Oh
it gave me all sorts of false hopes for the next 10. And I had some great guests, but you were just such a powerhouse. So no, it was
cool.
It was a phenomenal introduction. I can't thank you enough for your support.
Oh,
and
sure.
you know, you're at the stage where it's interesting, I think, for entrepreneurs to hear, because you've gone through the whole life cycle. You were PT, you had a practice, you grew the practice, you sold the practice. We at some point, there was a me in there at some point, but there was an initial stage without me.
That's true.
And then afterwards, you started doing other things. You've grown and scaled. I think the story that I wanted you to start with is this idea of what happened at your last event.
Okay.
So tell the audience about your events, and then tell me about, just what happened.
Yeah. So me and my partner have Private Practice Owners Club, which is our podcast that I've been doing for like 5-6 years. Can you believe we've got, I want to say like 350 episodes?
That's insane.
It's pretty crazy. And I think it's amazing content for private practice owners.
It's the best
Just
podcast
like
in the
yours.
industry.
Okay.
It is the best.
Thank you.
I'm chasing you. I like having people to chase.
Thank you. That makes me feel good. It's got great stuff. We also have a coaching company that coincides with that Adam and I have built off of that.
Adam Robin, the great and wonderful.
He's awesome. And because we have a coaching company, I think we're obligated. Aren't you obligated a little bit to have conferences? And so we've been doing in-person conferences. We've had our second conference in this last October. But we also decided to do some smaller, these workshops.
Yeah, intimate workshops. How many people?
Instead of like 150 people at an event, this is more like 20, 30 people in a room, right? And we can be a little bit more intimate, get into the weeds a little bit more, and maybe focus on a particular topic, one singular topic for a day and a half. So we had the annual strategic planning workshop that we did in early January 2026, to help owners map out their priorities and goals for the year. The same exercise that you and I went through multiple times with Scott Fritz, I just tried to expand that to the group and took them through that. What was interesting is I thought I was done. According to our agenda, I was done. And after doing that, but then things happened the next day, where all of a sudden we had 2 hours, like dead space.
2 hours. So people are like looking for something, and there's just this open space.
It was after our morning break, we come back, and there's 2 hours to work through until lunch, essentially. That's the agenda. And so I had to come up with something. Like, what are we going to do now? Like, this is my conference. All these people paid for it.
How many people were there?
We had 26 people in this room.
Yes.
And they paid for it. Yeah, they'd done their annual strategic planning, but the agenda says that we got 2 more hours of this, and then we've got lunch, right? And so, that was kind of scary, but interestingly, I felt semi-confident, like that it was just going to work out.
Really?
Well, you and I now have been in front of enough people and enough groups like that we've had enough experience and we've done enough things that we could come up with something.
Right. You had this base experience that provided a degree of confidence in the face of this recent shift.
Right. And so an exercise that you and I have done, especially in a small group like that, is like, hey, what kind of issues are you guys dealing with right now? I'm going to just call them out and I'm going to write them on the board.
Yeah.
And moderate that discussion with this group. Like, which one do you want to talk about first? Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay, who else is having that issue? What is your issue? Give us some context. Okay, has anyone else solved that? And then I share from my experience as well if I can. And then we just kind of like cross things off as we go down the list. That covered about an hour and 15 minutes. And I'm like, let's go take a break.
Yeah.
Because I needed the break. I didn't know what I was going to do next. And during that break, I'm looking over some notes and I'm like, oh, what else can we talk about? How can we make this valuable for the last 45 minutes? And then they came back and I'm like, okay, these 3 things we're going to talk about regarding your priorities and goals. What can you do to enhance them and give them more life, give them more energy, make them more impactful, have a greater vision for 2026? And we were able to talk through that for 45 minutes and then went to lunch.
Huge hit.
And afterwards I was just like, I'm really, honestly, I was like kind of proud of myself.
Yeah.
Like I can say, I can't say where did that come from. I know where it came from. Like I've been through enough of those, but to have the skill set to be able to do that is something I could have never imagined in my wildest dreams, even 10 years ago.
Right.
Right. And I know you've gone through a lot of the same stuff. And
But I think it's important to
cool.
talk about, though, because I think it's really useful as PTs who are listening to this, who are at different stages. We have students, we have new grads, we've got young business owners, experienced business owners,
Pediatric clinics and pelvic floor. It doesn't matter. Allied healthcare.
All these
health,
people who are going through this journey are
Right.
hearing what most people would consider their own personal hell, which is, hey, you have a group of people that you have to speak to for 2 hours that you didn't know you had to. Go.
Yeah.
And by the way, they paid you and you have to make it amazing.
Yeah, isn't that a Seinfeld joke? Like,
yes,
to be speaking at the funeral, more people would rather be in the coffin than actually speaking.
Yeah, dying is number 2. Public speaking is number 1.
Yeah, right.
So for you to be able to pop up and knock that out and not have like a big pressure, because I want to say this, it is scary. It is incredibly hard, and learning how to develop that muscle for all of us. I don't care how good any of us look on stage or in facilitating, but it was, to me, that what was really powerful, Nathan, was this idea that moment for me was a reflection of, as I've known you over 20 years now, how much you've evolved. Mm-hmm. You know, I met you after having one location. You had one location, and we were looking at expanding a second one together. And I think your job offer was, well, what do you think? And I think that was the big offer. Was like there was nothing written. We didn't go over any terms.
What do you think about Florence, Arizona?
Right.
Not just what do you think.
Yes.
What do you think about this desert hellscape called Florence?
It tells you there was divine intervention when what you were selling was the middle of nowhere, Arizona, with 18 prisons. We drove together for 45 minutes away from my home, and you said, without any terms, what do you think? And I went, I think it's pretty good. Like, I was like, let's roll.
All right, let's do it.
Best offer ever heard. I don't know what you're paying me. I don't know what but it turned into this place where now you're facilitating owners in a room off the cuff. So this is the show for today. Key lessons learned in your journey of personal evolution in the physical therapy space. Let's go back in time. What were some of the earliest challenges that you had to face as a young business owner? Let's go right into that level of entrepreneurship. What would you say were some of the hardest things you had to endure or figure out when you were starting out?
Like opening the clinic was, of course, a leap of faith, and it was scary. And some of my earliest challenges, like, dude, I do not want to market. Like, going and starting a conversation with people that don't necessarily want to see me or weren't expecting to see me, and somehow ingratiate them and
have them send you clients.
Dude, I would sit outside in my truck and like just listen to music for 10 minutes before going.
You're like Dwight in The Office listening to that heavy metal song before you go in.
I just didn't want, not to pump me up, I just didn't want to go in. Like, I don't want to do this. But I had a goal, right? I knew that's what needed to be done. And back in the day, physician referrals, I didn't have anything else. There was no social media. So what else am I going to do? And so, learning that skill set, I still don't feel like I'm the strongest marketer. You know that. But it's something that I had to do, was just talk to people. I think it helps, of course, based on our background, because you and I, we were in Boy Scouts, probably had some leadership positions in Boy Scouts to stand in front of the other boys.
Always.
Right? As a troop leader or something like that. And then at church, of course, we have opportunities to speak in front of the congregation from a young age.
Yes, in our church, they invite youth up every Sunday.
Yep. And then, of course, being a missionary and
2
talking
years.
to strangers all the time who do not want to talk to you.
And you were in Japan, by the way, which I have a totally new appreciation for, you going in that language, trying to talk to strangers out of a culture that likes to keep to itself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In Guatemala, it was like, ¿qué pasó? And all these people are like, nada. And you go and you start talking to them. But like, you're talking to people in a culture that's very formal.
Yeah. So I had that. That didn't change the fact that I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be talking to you. So just building on that was extremely difficult. My vision was, man, if I could have me and another provider, and we could, and maybe a PTA and a tech or two, and if if I saw 150 visits a week,
Killing it.
made it.
Killing it.
I've made it. This is the best. And Whitney and I told ourselves, Whitney's my wife. We told ourselves, if we can get a TiVo, do you remember TiVo?
Oh yeah. Boop, 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 boop. You remember that sound? Boop, 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 boop,
Yes.
boop, boop.
If we can afford a TiVo, then we know we've made it. Right? Dating myself now. So
If I could only get an 8-track.
right. It's crazy how your purposes change over the years,
Yeah.
man. And so getting to that point was like, this is cool. Maybe there's more. This is cool. Well, one clinic's doing all right. Maybe I can do a second one. The entire time, not building any systems, totally people dependent. Totally. I mean, I gave you zero support.
Emotionally, you were great though. I mean this sincerely. Like actual processes and like mentorship, no.
Nothing.
When it came to like, hey, like feeling like a part of something special and being led by someone who cares about what they're doing, which is I'm learning in retrospect is like 80% of it. So no, you were fantastic in those ways. Scalable, no, you couldn't provide that because you didn't know it.
Yeah. So learning those things along the way were difficult and slow in coming. Because I think you and I both would agree we should have gotten some kind of consulting or coaching earlier.
I don't think we knew about that.
We didn't necessarily know what it was, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there was the coaching wasn't a thing.
No.
That wasn't even a
It was
word.
seen down. It was looked down on. Like when you and I first worked together, I will tell you that it was my like emotional breakdown that for me led to some sort of effort in coaching. I reached out to that Measurable Solutions company because I was just like broken. And that's when you and I kind of started together, but it wasn't like, it was desperation. It wasn't anything other than that.
Yeah, that's true. And we, and so learning how to lead, like my initial interview questions or my explanation to someone of what they were supposed to do in an interview was like, I literally said these words: your job is to do whatever I tell you to do. That was
1950s dad.
That was my level of leadership because I didn't know what else to say or do.
Yeah.
I need to treat patients.
Right. So do what I ask you to do.
Do everything else so I can treat patients. That was my sole purpose. That was my goal. That's what all my education led to up until that point, was to treat patients.
Yeah.
And so head down, treat patients. You guys figure out the rest of it, which isn't leadership. That's just being a therapist and that who happens to own a business, right? And so those were tough lessons because, number one, I could see some of the lessons involved people looking at me knowing they had lost respect. Like,
I've had that look many a time, my friend.
oh, yeah.
That glance of like, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. You're a really stupid business owner. And I'd be like, just do what I told you to do.
Yeah. Don't judge me.
I'm going to fire you.
Yeah, right.
So learning that, just learning how to, it's a hard lesson because you get to a point where you hate your work.
Yeah.
Or you don't enjoy your own company. It's your company and you're just like, I hate this.
I started hating my life.
Yeah. I can't go on vacation because that's when hell's going to break loose at the company I'm going to go to call.
Oh, man. And you're judged as like the guy that's living for money.
And I have to answer all the calls because no one else has any answers or problem solving skills. And life just wasn't fun, man. Waking up at 4 a.m. to do my paper and pencil notes so I could get to work at 6:30, coming home at 7 p.m.,
Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
And financially, I was doing okay, right? That wasn't the issue. It was just like my life sucked. And I didn't know what to. I think part of it is I'm a pretty even-keeled dude. So like I wasn't necessarily emotional about it. I think it was more of, this is just how we do things.
Yeah.
This is how small business owners do things. And I didn't know any other way than to just nose to the grindstone it, right? And so those were difficult lessons.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, yeah, recognizing where I could have led more financial impact besides that, because I didn't know how to hold people accountable, how to track KPIs, you name it, how to track my cash, how many tens of thousands of dollars did we lose?
Millions, you mean? I don't know. I try not to think about it. You know what, though? I do say this. I think I like to look at that as that was us investing in our learning. And it's funny because like
That
the
was our
price
small
tag.
business ownership tuition.
Exactly. And there's kind of like that price tag is going to vary by person to person based on their background, support, but ultimately their ability to be coachable and trainable.
Yeah.
Because since I've coached people, I've met people in their 70s who are still at that stage after 50 years of running businesses or 40 years of running businesses that long. So their price tag, they're learning different lessons, I would say. And I don't think that we're better off than they are in terms of like, we're better people. I think the lessons they've learned are
But
deeper.
we are better off.
Financial, yes.
Well, just to not
Quality
be
of
in that
life,
state.
quality of life, no question.
Yes.
So they are learning, but it's
Yes.
it's like that's the price, I guess. But so what would you say what would you tell the audience, like the main 3 or 4 things that you learned from that time frame that has everything to do with being able to jump on stage and speak for 2 hours? And maybe those are disconnected, but what would you say in that time frame when you were struggling through all that? What was happening in terms of education for you?
I was really learning what it means to be a business owner, because you could do the technical therapy very well.
Yeah.
As a business owner. Otherwise, you don't
Have
usually
any business.
You don't have the confidence to branch out on your own. But to truly be a business owner, and on top of that, what does it take to be a business owner is one category, like the organization and the meetings and the agendas and the statistics and all this kind of stuff. It's another category altogether to learn leadership. So all I learned was the leadership that I had learned in Boy Scouts and through church leadership positions and whatnot. But those are, I'm leading a bunch of kids that want to be scouts or don't even want to be there, right? And in a church leadership position is a bunch of volunteers that have no impact on my financial well-being or anything like that. Now, these are people that I'm actually paying to be there. How do I get them to move in a certain way, in a certain direction? And then how do I, you know what it was, is how do I take control of my life?
Because you were being at the effect of all these things, and now you're taking control.
Yeah, think about being therapists. We are at the effect of our schedule. So the schedule fills up, and that tells us when we're busy and when we're not.
Yeah.
Because patients either come in or they don't. And if I'm going to have free time, it's because someone didn't sign up on that appointment slot.
Which is incentivizing in that way for people.
Yeah. And so we cede our control to the schedule. We are slaves to the schedule. And it took me close to a decade to understand that if this is going to go anywhere, I am fully responsible for getting it there myself. And it's not going to go anywhere unless I take control and say, this is what I'm doing, this is what you're doing, this is what the business will do, and ultimately taking control.
It feels to me like, and this is where it starts to sound maybe more cliche to people, but it's so powerful through the lens of what you just shared, is that you stopped letting go of you started letting go of like blaming others. You started taking full accountability that everything was up to you.
Yeah.
And not in a martyrdom, like, oh, it's all my fault. It's more like, no, I am the captain of my fate, or whatever that phrase is. I am what is it?
Captain of my ship.
Captain of my ship.
Are you trying to do Dead Poets Society?
Yeah. What's that?
Like that?
Anyway,
Anyway.
You're the general of your future or whatever. So you're the colonel of your calendar. So like the idea is that you decided everything, kind of like Jacko Wilco with that book, Extreme Ownership, the idea that you took extreme ownership of your world and said, this is up to me.
I had to do something. I had to take control. Yeah. Right. And it started with, I think we initially were doing stuff together at Entrepreneurs Organization, right?
EO. Yeah.
Yeah. With EO Accelerator. And they were talking about stuff like, I don't know, values and purpose and knowing your metrics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
what are you guys talking about?
Different language.
The people actually believe in, like you kind of heard those things, but you're like, that's for other businesses.
Purpose, vision, values is foo-foo.
Yeah. What is that going to do? How's that going to make me more money? Right?
Yeah, totally.
Or then eventually we started getting some coaching and consulting. Like, yeah, you need to take 5 hours out of your week and work on your business. And you're like, how, what?
I remember that thinking that was insane. Like, I'm barely making a profit, and now I'm going to cut out, 5 to 10 visits in those 5 hours because I was seeing a lot. Like that's how many hundreds of dollars was that?
Oh, per week, right? It's funny you say that because one of my first coaching clients, Steve in Vegas, he called me to get some coaching, and he remembers. I don't remember this, but I told him. I said, "Listen, I need to meet with you once a month, not during your lunch hour." And he said that blew his mind. It's like, how could I possibly? How could that possibly work that way for 1 hour a month to sit with my coach?
It's heartbreaking.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, we can say that now.
But I felt that way myself.
But
totally.
we did feel that way. Yeah, I totally felt that way. And so, yeah, taking control in that regard, and then learning what it meant to be a business owner.
Yeah.
Right. That's an education that we had to have that we never got, of course, from our therapy programs or from our undergraduate programs. We had to pay the tuition either in lost revenue or with coaching. You can do either one.
Yeah.
If you want to lose less money, you get the coach first. If you want to lose more money, don't get the coach and let life teach you the lesson over a long period of time. Hurts a lot more. That's when I actually started having fun in my business.
Interesting.
I don't know about you. We've had this conversation before years ago. Like, if someone could just take over the business side of things.
Oh, and let me treat.
Let me treat
Oof.
all day.
Oof.
Oh, I just want to see patients all day.
Yeah, man.
That was the dream. But you and I kind of.
Yeah, something happened, and it's funny because if we're not messaging it correctly, it looks like we're just stopping treating. But what we see is the evolution of we enjoy so much more working on the business because you see the impact on the patients
and the employees. Yeah, that's what that was the cool part. Like, oh wait, I can be an influence on more than just this patient that I'm working on. Of course, I get value from that, and that's what I learned all these decades to get to the point of. But now I'm learning this. I'm creating this skill set and these tools to have more than just a musculoskeletal impact.
Yeah.
And more on leading people and driving their purpose and coaching them, and that being a greater effect on multiples of people outside of myself. And that one-on-one interaction that I have with treating. So that was, you and I'm assuming, not to speak for you, but find so much more fulfillment, right?
Yes.
And purpose in making that kind of impact now. That like treating patients it doesn't cut it for us.
Well, when we were partners at Rise, you and I both talked how much we love that people love to treat in our practice. Like it was almost like we could never find that full fulfillment because of the many hats we had to wear. Mm-hmm. So when we took over the leadership hat and we were able to grow the company in a way that was actually somewhere fun to work and we were having fun, the physical therapists, PTAs, the front desk, the billers, they all started loving it. And that was what was so fulfilling was that we created an environment in the industry we love for people to do what they love and not have to feel that stress. And they were getting compensated fairly, if not generously. Mm-hmm. And that evolution was so much more satisfying than me trying to just treat my 25 patients in an hour. I was going to say a day, an hour, and then somehow run payroll. There was that to me. I think you're right. I think that was such a satisfying experience.
Yeah. And as we invested in them, you could see light bulbs going off in their minds and you could see their growth.
Yeah.
And they were fulfilling purposes that they hadn't dreamed of either.
Yes.
Because I'm assuming Michelle, one of your right-hand men, women, would have been in the same boat. Like if I could just treat patients.
She would have done the same path.
She would-
Any of those entrepreneurs, do you remember, girl from Wyoming, whose name? Kayla.
Yes.
She was so amazing.
She was awesome.
And where is she now?
She has her own business.
How many locations now? Like I think
know.
she's at 3.
Is she really?
Yeah, I stalk her a little. So like
That's awesome.
but like, you know what I'm saying? But she got to go through that process because we modeled it well. And we
Yes.
taught her the way to where our suffering was turned into our knowledge and then turned into edifying others. Not that they had it easy, but they had clarity in a way that you and I never had until we started like exploring options for the
They
first
could
time.
definitely learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, minimally, they had a roadmap of what not to do.
Yes, exactly. So it was cool. It was in that space then, that we're growing the business. We're growing a leadership team that we're super proud of,
Yeah.
right? And people that would stand up and say,
Oh, man.
I know I can make more money other places, but I would much rather be here because these are my people, right?
I love it here, and they would cry.
Yes.
And
Creating something like that was so fulfilling, right? But we had to learn some skills and tools to get to that point still.
what were the hardest ones for you to learn? Like for you personally, what would you say were the hardest ones? Were they certain interpersonal skills? Was it certain like leadership elements? Was it like holding someone? Was it firing people? Was it hiring? Was it money? Was like, where would you put like for you the greatest turnaround was?
Well, it's something that I'm still working on. It's not a strength of mine, is confrontation. Like having clarity conversations, holding someone accountable, that kind of thing.
I think that's true for most people, by the way.
Yes, it is. Some people have an inclination to get it done more quickly. Like I'll drag my feet.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to do it, but some people, maybe they're the minority. Like I think about Adam, my partner.
Yeah.
And if something's rubbing him the wrong way,
He's got to talk about it.
he's like, "Oh, hold on, we need to go talk about this really quick." Whereas I'm like, "Let me think about it." And
His courage to confront,
oh yeah,
I've never seen it in another person like that, ever.
and that's directly proportional to his growth.
Yeah.
His ability to confront the person or the issue is directly proportional to his growth. Like he's grown at a speed and a velocity that is significantly different than most. And I think you'll see that in most people. I mean, you've coached enough people, you work with enough owners that the ones who like make the decisions, have the conversations, make changes faster are the ones that are opening their 3rd, 5th, 10th, 15th clinic.
And they seem less stressed, ironically.
Yeah.
Isn't that, I mean, it's
crazy.
like the ones that are like, hey, let's hit this head on. They make more mistakes quicker. They learn from them faster, but they don't stop.
Yeah.
They get to these plateaus so much faster. There's a guy, I was on his show earlier today, who's Brad Powell. Huge shout out to his podcast. And just him in general. He's a younger guy, younger meaning like almost 40, which is so irritating. But, like in his late 30s, he's got this amazing like multi-location business going with, and he's pivoting the government for change in Utah, where he was a lead on helping make physical therapy considered private practice, or what's it called? Not direct access. It's called being a primary care
provider.
And so now they're changing the language to where insurances have to like lower their copays because
they're not
specialties anymore. So like he's doing that. And he's like in his late 30s and he's got 3 locations and more profit. So it's interesting to see how some people like Adam and Brad have just got that gift and they can just run,
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. That's still a tough one for me, but at least I feel like I have the ability to confront and I have the verbiage behind it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you and I, we've read enough books that we can understand some of the premises and foundations as to where to start. And it's not coming from a place of not knowingness.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so we have the capacity. So that was a tough one to get over. The other is, I feel like I'm even still held back because you and I both have done the, was it rocket fuel that has the visionary and the
integrator? It's a
and
controller. It was the controller, integrator, and visionary, or rocket fuel, which is part of the EOS.
Yeah. And I've taken that exam multiple times, and I'm equal parts visionary integrator.
Yeah.
Like the score is 82, 85, 85, 82.
That's so funny.
So for me, like where you and Adam offset me in a big regard is you guys are heavily visionary, right? And so that holds me back a little bit.
I see.
You know what I mean? It's something that I really have to work on, and it's honestly, if I spend a lot of time in the visionary space, it's draining.
What's your working genius type? What's your two?
I'm towards the end.
So you're more
like D&E or ENT or something like that.
Right. For those who don't know, Six Working Genius is by far the most important test you can take to determine where your energy in a business activity is going to generate from. And so, the coaching and the tenacity, which is the doingness of things, there's not one that's better than the other. There's different strengths around them.
Equally important.
Equally. There's not one that's more useful than the other. And you have to have a balance of a team that does all those things. You don't need one person can never be a team ever.
Yeah. And so that's where Adam and I have complementary gifts in that regard. But I definitely lean more towards the doingness.
Yeah.
Like if you give me your vision, I'm immediately going down the rabbit hole about how that's gonna how are we gonna do that
exactly.
But coming up with it, and so that's but recognizing that and that having you and having Adam as partners has been so beneficial in the things that we've done together. Is I've had to have it.
Yeah,
that's just it's hard for me doing things myself.
Well, and the reverse is true for me. I really struggle on doing the coaching, the one-on-one facilitation with a team member. I had to correct a team member yesterday. I don't have that many people underneath me in the org board, but this one person slept in, and I'm just like, the amount of frustration I have on those discussions. I can have them now just because I'm older and experienced, and I was just like, the energy drain perpetuated for hours afterwards.
Really?
And like a loving coach is like all about all those discussions, the hard, the good, the positive. And like, honestly, I don't even like the good ones. I'm just, I'm serious. I need a whiteboard and I need a group of people who are going to tell me which ideas suck and how to get it done. Cause that's all I have are ideas.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. So even now there's struggles. But can I share? Yesterday I had a call with a client, not a client, a prospective client, because I got this new program that I'm doing.
What's it called?
It's called, the current name is Profit Intelligence Program. It's where I'd be a fractional CFO. So I could come in.
Oh yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah,
I think this is your best one.
Yeah, so I can come in and look over some of your key metrics and tell you where you're leaking revenue, frankly. Like,
it's so, what I love about it is that it's so black and white. Like there's so many coaching things that matter. Like, hey, help me build a culture. Let's build your purpose. Yay, I feel good.
How do I get leaders?
Now, how do you draw that to profitability? Like it is vital, by the way, that you do that, but it's harder to see. Whereas if someone comes and says, hey, you've got a leaky pot right here, let's patch it, and then immediately you retain more water, you're like, that was a good action.
Yeah, I can help you make $50,000 this year
without
seeing any more patients.
Right.
Right.
Like who doesn't want that?
Yeah. So anyways, I was talking to someone and it was interesting because they are on the journey. There's two owners and they're on the journey and they made a lot of money this year. It's their busiest year ever.
Nice.
But they are working 15-hour days.
Oh no.
7 days a week. Don't have any hobbies. Don't have time to read a book. I said, I've got this podcast. They're like, we don't have time to listen to podcasts.
That's sad.
It's that kind of thing.
Very judgmental. You just
doing their own bookkeeping, running their own payroll.
Come on.
Yeah. And at one time I had to be frank with them and tell them, listen, you're too big. You can't do it all anymore. But I had to follow that up with, you guys are doing amazing things.
Yeah.
You've got an amazing company. This is part of the journey.
Right.
I don't think you can really bypass it. Whether it's for a long time or a short period of time, you have to go through the growing pains if you want to grow. Now, they could scale back and just be in a happy space that has a nice 15 to 20% profit margin and never grow again and see all the patients and do all the fun things. But I don't think entrepreneurs start a business to do that.
Ever.
Most of the time.
No.
There might be people who are like, well, I have come across a couple people who are like, one guy was a surgeon. He's like, the surgical room is my heaven. Like, that's all I want to do all day long is do surgeries.
Which is pretty amazing.
We need people like that.
We do.
I'm sure there's some dentist out there who's like, if I can just get in as many mouths as possible, then my life work is complete. I'm sure there are people like that.
Yes. Some of them are in prison. But so stupid.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but oh, woo.
Okay.
What were we talking about?
I don't know.
But there are, but most entrepreneurs, they have like greater dreams.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like the idea. It seems like even when we were in EO, words that would come to mind as people would say them that would inspire others.
Yeah.
Is freedom. And why else do you do your own thing if it's not to have some freedom? But then when you become slave to the company, you're recognizing there's no freedom in this. I mean,
it's very taxing.
It's the E-Myth Revisited
Yes.
for every small business owner. And I shared that book with them. Like, this is what I had to tell them was, you guys are doing amazing things. This is all very normal. You are on the path of ownership. And there is more to look forward to. You just have to learn some skill sets. You have to learn to delegate, and you have to invest in the business by hiring experts. And you have to, it's no more about how much you can do on your own and pulling up your bootstraps and just getting down in the muck and getting it done. It's not like that anymore. You got to act like adults who have $1 million business and make $1 million decisions, and stop looking at things as expenses, but as investments. Hire a bookkeeper, for hell's sake. Like,
yes,
let's get serious.
Delegate anything. It's a whole buy back your time method of like,
Totally.
when you start evaluating your time and you start putting a financial marker to it, and you start delegating everything below that marker, and then you start measuring. For me, the big thing was measuring opportunity cost, meaning what does it cost me to not make those changes?
If I don't make these changes, how much money am I going to potentially lose?
Right, because what people think is, I'm going to do my bookkeeping. That saves me $300 a month, right?
Totally, yes.
But what they're not calculating is, yeah, I might pay someone $300 a month to do my bookkeeping. But with those 3 hours a month, what if I was working in my genius and I was bringing in, well, how many more, if I'm treating patients, how many more patients could I do? Or if I'm developing the business, how many more therapists could I hire over a year? Right. And now we're talking about that $300 monthly like savings compared to tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost opportunity when we start objectively measuring it. That's why I like that program so much. I think when you start showing them the buckets, and how did they respond to that, by the way, that couple yesterday?
They weren't a fit for my program because they were so discombobulated. Like they were at a point, I knew that I could go in and get them the data that they need to make some changes and increase their revenue.
Would they make the change?
They didn't have the bandwidth to make changes.
Yeah.
Like, I was just going to be more noise is what I gathered. So I directed them honestly to, they had in-house billing, and that in-house biller needed a ton of support.
Got it.
Yeah. I'm like, you're losing money right there, right now.
Patch
Let's
that
get
hole.
this figured out. Come back to me in 6 months. Right. But I said all that just because that was a most recent experience yesterday. But also, they're overwhelmed. They're just like you and I were. And that's just part of the journey. I mean, you got to go through that lesson. I'm excited to see where those owners are.
Yeah.
Where are they going to be in 10 years?
Yes.
Because we were there 12 years ago, 15 years ago, right? In that exact same situation. You
know, what's interesting too for me is that as I've evolved and starting to hit new barriers for growth because of my lack of knowledge and my lack of control, I'm learning the same lessons. I'm just learning them at a deeper level. So like the whole getting someone else to do things for you goes to Benjamin Hardy's book, Who Not How. And so as you know, I'm looking to hire someone who's going to actually be my COO and run my business.
That's a huge investment.
It's a huge investment. And it took So I was talking to Leila Hormozi, who told me this directly. She goes, she's a coach or a mentor type of person.
Name drop.
I know. Did you hear that? Subtle. I don't even know anyone here even knows. Our crowd probably doesn't even know who that is. They're a big deal in our world.
They should.
They should
know.
Look her up online. She's kind of a big deal. And
Alex and Leila Hormozi.
she was talking to me personally the other day. And
via text.
we were braiding each other's hair, and she's like, "Hey, Will, does this make me look fat?" I'm like, "What?" I don't know where this is going. I said to her, she tells me, she goes, there's a major mental transition that happens once your business hits around 2-3 million in revenue. Yes. And she goes, it really becomes more of something you have to relearn every little stage. And that is that your value you bring as an owner has little to do with your effort and more to do with your judgment. Getting to the million mark, it's effort.
It is effort. Beyond that, it's your ability to make decisions accurately. Yes. Leadership team, strategies and systems. Yeah. It's what you do with your time.
All these things. Yeah. She goes, and she was saying that if you aren't as sharp as you possibly can, you're not getting the sleep or exercise you need, if you're not doing those things and you're like, and it feels awkward, it feels weird because when you're not, as Alex says directly, until your world is perfectly quiet, you don't know what the best thing is to do for the business. You have to have almost a state of boredom from a lack of things to do in your own business before you have the space to generate the best judgment to make these 10x decisions for scale. And that was a real, I mean, it's more of that same lesson that I'm learning over and over again. When I started Virtual Rockstar, I was very quick to hire for every little thing that I was doing. Yes. Okay, I started doing sales, let's hire a salesperson. Don't like having one person, let's hire multiple. Just started like building these systems and people around me to where I was trying to but see, now we've hit this stage in our growth where I don't know what to do now. I've never built a company beyond the stage where I'm at now. Got it. So now it's time to bring in an expert at a totally different, riskier thing. And I know I'm making the right decision because it scares me like there's no other. And I think that's the thing you and I might say to our younger versions of ourselves is, the way you know you're doing the right thing is by signing up with that super expensive coaching company. Have you ever regretted any money that you've ever spent with any of the coaches or consultants that we've spent?
Never. How
much do you think we've spent? If you had to put a number on the money we've spent over the years on coaches, how much do you think we put?
Do you think it's 250,000?
Yeah, easy.
I would say
easy.
Never regretted a penny of it.
No.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I love what you're saying there because that when I'm telling that owner that they need to get a bookkeeper,
yeah,
she has that same fear as you hiring a 6-figure COO.
Right.
It's the same fear.
It's no different. And it's the fear that keeps us there because like for me, there's a lazy factor now at my age where I'm like, yeah, I remember the first time I hired a bookkeeper and it didn't work. And it was like the bookkeeper I have now is like the 5th one. Yeah. And I don't want to go through that process with my right hand. Like that seems impossible. Yes. But you're also playing it at such a higher level that I would argue, and I'm going to put to the universe, that I'm also leveraging I'm doing it smarter. Like I am leveraging better people and expertise. I'm not afraid to pay top dollar anymore because I learned the hard way that usually you pay what you get for, not always, but the vast majority of the time. Yes. So if you had to go back in time to a younger Nathan, like let's say you just opened your doors off of Jermaine and Alma School. That for those of you in Arizona, you're losing your minds right now. You're like, he said Alma School. It's like this really funny street name, but that's where your first clinic was, Jermaine and Alma School. And like, let's say he opened his doors and then you showed up from a time machine and you just pop out and you're like, after you go through the whole like, is it me? And then the numbers behind my back and that kind of, and like, it's really you. Yeah. What would be the advice you would give him? And you only have 60 seconds. That's another thing in this game because that time portal is going to close itself, and then you're stuck. Right. You're stuck in 2003.
Yeah, it'd be something along the lines of, listen, invest in experts who can get you where you want to go faster. And as you do that, you will find greater purpose. You will find a much more expansive vision for what you can do and be beyond this clinic. I think that would blow my mind.
Yeah. I was actually really well said, Nate.
Oh, thanks.
Because you also hit upon this idea of unlimited potential. Because like at the time, I guess, like you and I both, I dreamed of the day of having 100 visits per week and another therapist and be able to take 4 weeks off a year. That just seemed like an unreal life.
Paradise.
Make 100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Live off that richness until I sail off in my yacht. Like that's how I dreamed. And now you look back and it's like, yeah, now you're coaching people with multiple locations. You're managing, you've experienced multi-million-dollar sales and you're, filling the space on stages and rooms for hours on end without any hesitation. But I think all that time, isn't it true? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but don't you think all those years of struggle, you were really digging a well of knowledge that you later pulled from when in that 2 hours, maybe the reason you weren't scared was because you had been in so much suffering and learning that you had earned this well of knowledge that when it was time without preparation, you were able to dip into that well and just pull it out? Yeah,
just dip in from the pool of wisdom, the learned experience over time, right? One other thing I would tell myself, and we'll get back to that you brought up, I did have that thought exercise in my mind one time. I think it was at church, and it was something along the lines of what in my current situation, so this was like 15 years ago, in the middle of the struggle, what would my older self, the 90-year-old self, come back and tell me? So imagine myself at 90. What would my 90-year-old self tell me right now?
Yeah.
And that was more along the lines of, dude, you don't have to worry about it so much.
Yeah.
Like, don't let fear hold you back.
I think that's a big one for me too.
Right? I mean, you were so enveloped by fear every week, depending on the patient volume, the new patient volume, the collections. Like, move forward boldly in faith and make some decisions that aren't so fear-based. And I think I think that's another thing that I would have to tell myself is I was ruled by fear. I'm ruled by the scarcity of money. And if I could push through that just a little bit, then I will experience a lot more fulfillment and joy. And so that's another thing I would tell myself. But to go back to what you were talking about.
That's amazing.
Is, because you and I have gone through that, we can pull from that pool of wisdom such that, interestingly, in that moment, going back to my original story where I had to fill those 2 hours.
Yeah.
We were talking about things, and I remember this distinctly. One woman shared that she had a provider that needed, quote unquote, more money, right? They needed a raise. Yet she still hadn't met her production expectations.
Yeah.
But needed more money. And I don't know why. I was just like, okay, so you need to have a conversation with her, right? And she's like, yeah, I need to talk to her this next week. And I'm like, okay, you ready to role play it? And she's like, yeah, I'd love to. And as I'm walking over towards her, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go.
Live.
This is like, I don't know I hope this turns out well so I don't look like a bumbling idiot.
Yeah, right.
And bring some wisdom to the stage. But we talked through it, and she was like, that's exactly what I need to do. And I'm like, Thankfully, I watched enough of Will and Adam holding those role play conversations that I could mimic it.
Listen, you say that, but I was early on with you in those rooms at Measurable Solutions, and you were down with that. Dude, you were so good at those role play stuff.
It was so hard.
It's the only way, by the way. All these big successful companies, they role play nonstop. It sounds cheesy, but it is the only way.
Dude, I tell people all the time, you have to role play these. Like, that's the one thing. Our team initially hated it.
Yeah.
But I think they started to recognize the value of it.
Right.
And I think it's an untapped secret that you could leverage.
That's like a book title. Role play to success, so that you can take every situation and practice it with another human being until you find your voice and then go do it.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, just to go through that with her and then to tell her, listen, you need to do this with your husband before you have the conversation. Get your words down so that the fear of not saying the right thing has gone away and you can focus on the moment and on their response and the emotion and keep yourself grounded, right?
Yeah.
But that was really a cool experience that, again, I could draw from that pool of wisdom, that the experience that we've had in the past for the benefit of someone else.
Yeah, right. Well, that's powerful. I love the idea of the older version of ourselves coming back and giving us advice, and I know mine would come back and Same thing. I think it's the fear. I think it's just be like, enjoy the process. I think an older version of me would be like, hey man, you're only going to be young like this once. I know money is like a big concern. It's going to be fine. Like do your best. And at 5 o'clock, I want almost like my older version to give myself permission to like check out at that point, or 6 o'clock or whenever it was, 7 o'clock, just come home and be home. And then on Saturdays, dude, let it go. And if someone sends you don't check your emails ever after, like these little things that we all think we know, but having an older version of me give permission to do that would have been so freeing. And I'm sure before he left, he'd turn around and say, don't forget to moisturize. And then he would leave. And I'd be like, and by the way, I'm sure I would have known by looking at him, I probably need to start moisturizing.
Of course.
My face looks like a giant pent up of skin.
Mine would have said, do more to keep your hair.
What can you do? That's an impossible, like. And by the way, be 4 inches taller. Like, what? I can't do that.
What am I going to do? Yeah. So I think there's that part of us that just needs to like give ourselves a little bit more grace and step back and be like to that. What I was trying to say to that partnership was like, you've done some awesome stuff.
Yeah, man.
People want to see you because you're awesome therapists. And you've created an environment which is welcoming and not just welcoming, but generates results.
Yeah.
Right? Give yourself some credit. And now let's actually act like owners. I think I actually told them that. You actually need to start acting like owners.
I like that. Yeah. It's a call. Yeah. It's a call of invitation to grow and to be better.
And there's I'm recalling so much stuff as we're talking. My mom was not the wealth of wisdom and catchphrases.
Right.
Like she was a beautiful woman and salt of the earth. But I remember one time, like I was going to graduate from high school in a couple days. I'm like, I'm kind of scared about graduating because I've had so much fun. This has been cool. I don't know how it could get any better.
Yeah.
Right. I'm worried about the future because I'm going to be an adult and stuff like that. And she, one of her wisdoms was like, you know what? It just gets better. It's different, but it just gets better.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. There's blessings and opportunities that you can't experience at your age. And you get to have a family and children and a wife and all these cool things and experiences that you can't have when you're in high school, but it's just different. Right?
Wow.
And so you could say that to people, whatever stage they're in, like, yeah, it's scary, but it's better. There's better opportunities out there, right? And so I remember that, and I always think about that.
I love that. Nathan, I think that's a great way to wrap up our show today, just to remind our audience that it's going to get better. And I think one thing that you and I can both say confidently, and I hope this is okay, is that if we can get to where we are, anyone can get to where we are. Because there was no, the Adam Robbins, that wasn't me. You know what I mean? I wasn't the Brad Powells. Like I was the guy that was like years of kicking into that. If I didn't have some of these really intense negative things, I would never change. But thank you.
Can you imagine? I'm going to keep going. Can you imagine like how people see us that were in that measurable solutions group? Like we were some of the younger dudes, right?
Absolutely.
And we were looking up to Brandon and Blaine and Vinod.
Chad Elms.
How could we ever be like those guys? And we're just acting like idiots, and you're telling lies at the podium about being in fat camp together and
that's right,
stuff like that. And then
I told everyone that's how we met. You were my counselor
exactly.
at fat camp.
We were counselors at fat camp. But we're the guys now that have the podcast and the coaching companies.
I know.
And they're probably looking at us like, how did those guys do that?
I don't know. It's funny, those guys, as we see them now, they have like 1 million clinics now. So it's just funny how I still kind of feel that way with all those guys because they're so freaking amazing.
I still look up to them. I'm like, how you're the one that should be having the podcast. What are you guys doing?
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, Nathan, thank you for everything. This was such a great show. I appreciate it. I know everyone got a lot out of it. So please plug your program, your podcast, all the things.
So
plug.
If you haven't listened to the Private Practice Owners Club podcast,
then where are you if you haven't listened to this show? I'm shaming all my audience.
I think there's a ton of value. I'm really proud of my library, and that's not just self-serving. I listen to my episodes once in a while. I'm like, that was awesome. Yeah. Whether it was me or the guest, right? I'm like, that was awesome. I think there's a ton of value there. To go along with that, there's the Facebook group, Private Practice Owners Club Facebook group.
It's one of the most active serving Facebook groups in the industry. 100%.
Oh, that's cool.
I love how you guys run that.
And then we have the coaching program, of course. So if you are in one of these stages and you're like, if someone could just tell me what to do, that would help. Always reach out to us, Nathan at ppoclub.com or Adam at ppoclub.com. Of course, we have ppoclub.com website that has
all the things.
Has our under resources. It has our podcast library, which you can use a search menu to find the topics you want to learn about, or the events page where we're going to have our next webinars and conferences. We have our October conference in San Antonio in October 2026, October 15th through 17th in San Antonio.
Go if you haven't been. They're amazing.
Yeah, they're awesome. It'll be our third, and they're just getting better. And we always have webinars. We'll have more in-person workshops. The more intimate settings. And then my new program, it's a fractional CFO program that currently is in the pilot stages. So early 2026, if you're listening to this, it's in the early pilot stages. I'm happy to bring people on because I need to improve my systems and
oh my gosh, so they get a huge deal and they get the huge
deal.
Program just to be able to work through it with you.
Huge discount to help you find tens of thousands of dollars.
Come on.
Like I was doing audits on clinics last year that were just like one and done things. Like give me this data, I will analyze it and give you a report where you can make money. And I was punching out the numbers, and there was one company that like a $2.8 million PT practice, 2 clinics. And no joke, I found where if they made a few changes, not easy, but few changes, could easily make another $200,000 a year.
Of profit? Insane.
Yeah, of profit.
That's like money in your pocket.
Yeah.
I'll talk about opportunity cost.
Totally changed their
So guys,
lives.
jump on this program. How many people are you able to take?
Well, hard to say, like at the time that this comes out. Right, I've got a few people now.
As of now,
I can take a couple more.
So yeah, you want to be one of the few people jump on.
Yeah, exactly. I can take a couple more, but this will continue to grow. Right. So now I'm not just doing the audit at the beginning every other week. I'm looking at some of your metrics and telling you, hey, focus over here. Give you 1 or 2 prescriptions to.
So not heavy lifting. It's like, hey, just go focus on this one step at a time.
Yeah, you could have 3 to 5 things to work on. I'm just going to say this will get you the most money the fastest if you correct it. Right. Over the counter collections or billing or productivity or that kind of stuff. And so that's the idea is I can come in and show you where you're losing money or leaking money and plug those holes and make more profit, right? And so it's a bi-weekly thing with monthly reports as well. And so that's where I'm going right now with that. I'm really excited about it.
Well, Nathan, as always, thanks for being on the show. And while you're probably posting this on your show as well, thank you, PPO listeners, as well. And have a great rest of your time. I'm sure we're going to just watch the wonderful growth of that company as it goes. But yeah, thanks for all that you do.
Thanks, man. It was awesome.